Over 4,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians ruled a significant part of the world, and even though they left behind a detailed legacy of art and architecture, they also left behind a host of mysteries that even today, the most expert scholars have been unable to solve. Probably the most enduring mystery of all is how they were able to build not only the pyramids, but many other incredible structures without machinery or expert technology. Not to mention their near-perfect alignments to specific astronomical and cardinal points. These near-impossible feats have led many to believe that intelligent extraterrestrial beings visited Earth at that time, bringing with them advanced technologies, knowledge, and compasses, and made the seemingly impossible possible. Of course, the idea that ancient aliens existed is not taken seriously by the experts, and has received very little credible attention. However, these 5 fascinating ancient Egyptian mysteries have been studied in depth, and to date, all remain unexplained. Number 1 being second in line on the mysterious factor behind the Great Pyramids of Giza. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning platform that repeat viewers will be familiar with. They not only offer courses on a variety of topics, from business to design to tech, but also allow people to create their own courses on subjects they have knowledge in and are looking to share. I've been adding more video editing skills to my belt through their video editing and production lessons, and I recommend them to anyone looking to improve their video skills. For the first 500 people to use the special Top 5s link in the description, they will get 2 months free of Skillshare Premium membership, which gives you unlimited access to over 20,000 classes. After that, and if you want to continue your learning, it's cheaper per month for unlimited learning than I spend on coffee a week. Don't forget to click on the link after this video, and once again, a big thank you to them for sponsoring this production and allowing us to continue with the high quality research and standard you all know and love. With that being said, let's get into one of my favourite topics. Who were the Sea Peoples? For nearly a century, a band of mysterious maritime warriors repeatedly attacked Egypt, Turkey, Syria, Palestine, and other territories, and no one could match the power of their mighty warships. They became known as the Sea Peoples, an unknown civilization, who wreaked havoc on ancient Egypt and featured heavily in inscriptions and carvings left by the Egyptians, who documented their reign of terror. But it seems that despite these detailed records of their attacks, little or nothing is known about who these mysterious people were, where they came from, or where they went. One of the first references dates back to the 13th century BC, during the reign of Merenptah, who claims to have killed 6,000 of the mysterious seafarers after they allied themselves with the Libyans. However, the most detailed accounts comes from Ramses III, who fought a series of catastrophic battles against the Sea Peoples around 1170 BC. One inscription reads, "They desolated its people, and its land was like that which has never come into being." He describes the Sea Peoples as consisting of a mixture of tribes, including the Sheridan, Peliset, Denyen, Shekelash, and others. What isn't known is why the Sea Peoples attacked in the first place, although it has been speculated they may have been displaced from their homeland by either famine or natural disaster, although this is only speculation. Whatever their origins, the Sea Peoples returned to Egypt in the mid-12th century BC, intent on conquering Egypt, but Ramses III led his forces to the defence of his kingdom, and after defeating the Sea Peoples' army on land, he decimated their fleet at the 1175 BC Battle of the Delta, where Egyptian archers lined the banks of the Nile and rained arrows on the enemy's ships. The war left Egypt considerably weakened, but it also signified the end of the Sea Peoples' raids, and as mysteriously as they appeared, they disappeared, having been decisively defeated. They vanished from history, leaving behind questions that still linger today. What is the Dendera Light? The Temple of Dendera, dedicated to the goddess Hathor, is one of the most mysterious ancient temples built by the Egyptians. It's located 2.5 kilometers southeast of Dendera, and is one of the best preserved of all the Egyptian complexes, especially its central temple, that remained buried by sand and mud until the middle of the 19th century, when it was unearthed by Auguste de Mariette. The main temple features a relief, that is unlike any other ancient Egyptian art and is commonly known as the Dendera light. The images engraved on it have raised the questions of just how far advanced the Egyptians really were. It features an object resembling a light bulb and has convinced conspiracy theorists and alternate history fanatics that the ancient Egyptians were given the power of electricity 4,000 years ago by time travelers or ancient aliens, and the light source enabled them to construct the pyramids and other tombs and monuments they created. People believe the bulb-like object is reminiscent of an early light bulb known as Crookes tube. Inside the bulb is a filament represented by a snake that leads to a lotus flower that represents a socket, and a wire leads to a small box in which the air god is kneeling. Beside the bulb is a pillar that they perceive as an insulator, and the baboon is a warning that the device could be dangerous if not used correctly. This claim is backed up by the lack of soot found in the Egyptian tombs, ruling out the possibility that they were lit by fire and electricity was used instead. However, it's worth pointing out that most Egyptologists have dismissed this claim, saying there is evidence of soot, but seen as we are talking over 4,000 years ago, it's not visible to the naked eye. Here is a mock-up of how the light would look and work, as displayed in the Mystery Park in Switzerland. The mainstream interpretation paints an entirely different story. The relief is a mythological depiction of a jet pillar and a lotus flower, spawning a snake within that represents aspects of Egyptian mythology. The jet pillar is a symbol of stability, which is also understood to be the backbone of the god Osiris. In the carvings, the 4 horizontal lines forming the centre of the jed are enhanced by human arms stretching out as if the jed were a backbone. The arms hold up the snake within the lotus flower. The snake coming from the lotus symbolises fertility, linked to the annual Nile flood. It sounds reasonable. However, there are many who are still unwilling to accept this explanation, and who remain convinced the Dendera light is proof ancient Egyptians and the ancient aliens are one and the same. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. The life and death of King Tutankhamun. Following extensive excavations in the late 1800s, many archaeologists thought the Valley of the Kings in Egypt had yielded all its secrets. However, British archaeologist and Egyptologist Howard Carter had a hunch that there was still more to find, and for 6 fruitless years he searched the valley looking for the tomb of an obscure king who ruled 1332 to 1323 BC. His financial backer, Lord Carnarvon, was on the brink of calling off the excavation, but Carter convinced him to stick with it for one more season. In November 1922, Carter discovered Tutankhamun's near intact tomb. The king's mummified body lay within a nest of 3 golden coffins, which fitted snugly, one inside the other, like a set of Russian dolls. 2 of the coffins were made of wood, covered with gold sheets, but the innermost coffin was made from thick sheets of solid beaten gold that weighed an astonishing 110.4 kilograms, or 243 pounds. These coffins were encased in a rectangular stone sarcophagus, and the tomb was packed with priceless treasures that included a gold throne, crown, and cobra, as well as the golden burial mask. The find was the most significant discovery of the 20th century, and revealed that Tutankhamun was about 17 when he died, and was likely to have inherited the throne at the age of just 8 or 9. He is thought to have been the son of Akhenaten, commonly known as the Heretic King, and he ruled for approximately 10 years, most likely aided by powerful advisors. However, despite his mummy being surrounded by valuable treasures, and his coffin being the most expensive in the world, in comparison to other Egyptian kings, Tutankhamun's tomb was tiny. In fact, it was the smallest royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and was not a tomb befitting of a king, but rather a hurried, put-together chamber cut into the floor of the main valley. This prompted speculation that Tutankhamun died suddenly, and his intended tomb was a much grander, spacious affair that was not finished at the time of his death, and was later occupied by his successor Ai. The surprisingly small size of Tutankhamun's tomb also led to suggestions that there may be parts to it that are undiscovered. However, just this year, experts have dismissed this possibility. Uncertainty still surrounds the death of the young king, with many believing he was weak and sickly, and may have been assassinated or died in a chariot or hunting accident. But in 2010, scientists found traces of malaria parasites in his mummified remains and revealed that malaria, combined with a degenerative bone disease, might have been the real cause of death. Mystery solved. Not quite. In 2018, a new theory came to light after analysis of leather armour found in the Boy King's tomb. It revealed that it was well used and had probably seen action. Contrary to other theories, Tutankhamun may have met his death in battle. If this were true, it would counter the idea that he was a weak and sickly leader. This theory could also explain why Tutankhamun had no heart, which could be a sign that he died far from home, and by the time his body arrived back to perform the mummification process, his heart was too decayed to preserve. Despite this new research, the cause of Tutankhamun's death is still one of ancient Egypt's biggest mysteries, and the source of considerable debate, and with no records found of his final days, is likely to remain that way for the foreseeable future. The Lost Land of Punt. The mysterious land of Punt is a lost kingdom, and the existence of the region is only known because of its mention in ancient Egyptian records, although its exact location is still undiscovered. The writings suggest it was a rich place that prospered between 2450 BC and 1155 BC, and was a trading partner of Egypt that produced gold, aromatic resins, ebony, ivory, and wild animals. A relief located in Upper Egypt shows a variety of trees grew in Punt, suggesting it was a lush tropical land, and for many years, researchers have been trying to pinpoint the location of the mysterious land. The most recent research indicates it was in Africa. Another relief found at modern-day Luxor depicts the result of a mysterious overseas expedition to the land of Punt, ordered by the Queen in around 1477 BC, and sheds more light on the elusive land. The image, known as the Portico of Punt, shows 5 ships carrying 210 men, loaded with gold, trees, and exotic animals like leopards, baboons, and giraffes. The ships are surrounded by a variety of fish, some of which zoologists identified as species that live along the coast of Africa, reinforcing claims that Punt was indeed somewhere in that region. But if Punt was in Africa, how did the Egyptians make the hazardous journey to reach it? Well, it seems there was no end to the ancient Egyptians' talents, and it's thought they mastered the seas as well as the land. Proof of this came in a series of discoveries made along a section of the Red Sea coast, when archaeologists excavated a dried-up lagoon, known as Mursak Oasis. They discovered traces of an ancient harbour that had helped launch early voyages onto the open ocean. Man-made caves in the area contain various shipbuilding materials, and the remains of one is the oldest seagoing ships ever found. This evidence shows the Egyptians were not only skilled at creating incredible land monuments, but were also competent shipbuilders. These recent discoveries have ignited a new theory on where the lost land of Punt is, and how the Egyptians managed to reach it. It seems the ever-resourceful Egyptians could sail down the Nile, before disassembling their boats and carrying them overland to the Red Sea, reassembling them to do trade with Punt before repeating the process on the way back. Now this seems extreme, but then again, they built the pyramids. Further proof of this was identified in 2010, when researchers discovered hair samples from 3,000-year-old mummified baboons found in tombs in the Valley of the Kings. These would have been the pets of the elite that were buried with their masters. The ancient hair samples were compared with the hair samples of modern animals living in Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Yemen, Uganda, and other similar countries, and concluded it was most likely the animals originating in eastern Ethiopia and Eritrea. A similar discovery adds weight to the Africa theory, after archaeologists identified a depiction of a bird on the Portico of Punt as a secretary bird, a large bird of prey found only in Africa, particularly around coastal regions in Sudan. So it appears science is moving ever closer to discovering the location of the lost land of Punt, and a place that was thought to be just a myth appears to be an actual place, just still to be pinpointed. The mysterious Great Sphinx. The Great Sphinx is located on the Giza Plateau about 10 kilometers west of Cairo, and sits adjacent to the Great Pyramids of Giza. It is orientated due east, facing the rising sun. The enormous structure is one of the most mysterious of ancient Egypt, and despite modern research, no one really knows why it was built and what its purpose was. It's the largest surviving sculpture from the ancient world, measuring 73.5 meters in length, or 241 feet, and in parts 20 meters, or 65 feet in height. And it was carved from a single block of limestone, and is one of the largest single stone statues in the world. For thousands of years, the Sphinx was partially covered in sand, and it wasn't until the 1900s, when the sand was cleared, that its full body was exposed. It's believed that the Sphinx was constructed in the 4th dynasty, starting in 2613 BC by Pharaoh Khephren, who had the stone shaped into a lion with his own face carved on it. Although some archaeologists believe it is much older than that, but because it is one of the few ancient Egyptian constructions with no inscriptions on its surface, it's impossible to date it with any certainty. One of the main peculiarities about the sculpture is that its head is out of proportion to its body, and it's been speculated that the head we see today may not have been the original and could have been recarved several times by succeeding pharaohs, and may even have started out as a ram or a hawk. Also, various unsuccessful repairs over the years have altered the facial proportions. However, considering it's around 4,500 years old, it's still in remarkable condition. Although it's not completely unscathed, its nose and ritual beard are missing, as well as its cobra-embellished headdress. It was initially believed that the Sphinx lost its nose to Napoleon's men, but 18th century drawings revealed that the nose of the Sphinx was missing before Napoleon's arrival, and it's now generally believed that it was shot off by the Turks. The beard is now displayed in the British Museum. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about the Sphinx is what lies beneath it. It's known that there are 3 passages into or under it, and the Tomb of Osiris is located 95 feet below the surface behind the back of the structure. There is evidence that there are many more passages. In 1995, workers renovating a nearby parking lot uncovered a series of tunnels and pathways, 2 of which plunged further underground, close to the Sphinx. Also, archaeologists have found evidence of anomalies in the form of hollow spaces or chambers, a few meters below the ground, between the pores and at either side of the Sphinx. Despite these fascinating discoveries, the Egyptian government will not allow any further examination. The smog, humidity, and wind mean the Sphinx is crumbling, and the cost of keeping up with repairs and restoration is huge. For now, the focus is on preservation rather than further explorations. Because of this, it seems we'll have to wait many more years before the Great Sphinx gives up all her secrets. So that's 5 truly fascinating ancient Egyptian mysteries. I don't know what it is, but myself and so many others are drawn to the ancient Egyptians. Their way of life, how they did what they did, and the mysteries they left behind. It's incredible, and a topic I wish to explore even further. Let us know in the comments what you find so interesting about them, and don't forget to follow the link in the description and comments section to check out Skillshare and help support this channel. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you right back here next week for another Top 5s video.